If you're afraid of death, feel anxious about the future, or have lost someone you love, this video will transform your perspective on the end of life. Get ready to hear liberating truths, and a timeless guide that can heal your soul starting today. Why talking about death sets you free. What if everything you've been taught about death is wrong? And what if understanding it could finally set you free to live fully, fearlessly, and peacefully? In the next few minutes, you're going to discover ancient spiritual wisdom, revealed by mystic Sadhguru, that will forever change how you see death, grief, and even your own purpose in life. By the end of this video, you'll not only release fear, you'll awaken to a deeper sense of life, love, and liberation. This video is not just about death. It's about the life you've been postponing because of unconscious fear, unresolved grief, or spiritual disconnection. You'll learn how yogic science views the dying process, how to heal emotional wounds caused by loss, and how death can become your greatest spiritual teacher. If you've lost someone, fear losing someone, or simply feel anxious about the future, this message is for you. It's raw, real, and rooted in wisdom that transcends time. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions, stuck in routines that don't nourish your soul? Do you lie awake at night wondering what happens after all this ends, or why you're even here? If so, you're not alone. And this video will speak directly to those hidden questions you've carried in silence. Watch until the end, because what you'll hear might just awaken a part of you that's been waiting to live fully, deeply, and without fear. Death is one of the few certainties in life, yet it remains the most avoided conversation in modern society. We treat it as taboo, as something too dark or painful to confront. But the irony is that this very avoidance creates more fear, more anxiety, and more suffering than the reality of death itself. According to mystics like Sadhguru, liberation begins not when we deny death, but when we fully face it. In his groundbreaking book, Death, An Inside Story, he doesn't romanticize death, he demystifies it. Sadhguru invites us to see death not as an enemy, but as an ever-present companion that gives life its preciousness. We fear death because we are deeply attached to form, our bodies, our identities, our relationships. But what if who we are transcends all that? What if death is not a punishment, but a passage? This simple yet profound shift in perception can radically transform the way we live each day. By exploring death through the lens of ancient yogic wisdom, Sadhguru helps us understand that fear arises from ignorance, not from truth. It is the mind's resistance to what it cannot control or comprehend. But spiritual knowledge is the antidote to existential dread. When you bring awareness to death, you bring intensity to life. You begin to act, love, and exist with greater presence and intention. The purpose of this video is not to be morbid, but to offer clarity, healing, and expansion. Whether you've recently lost someone or have quietly feared your own end, the knowledge shared here can be profoundly liberating. It opens the door to a deeper inquiry. What is life, really, if it ends? And more importantly, what remains when everything else dissolves? So take a breath, center yourself, and stay with us through this powerful journey. By the end of this video, you may not only see death differently, you may finally begin to live with courage, peace, and purpose. The yogic perspective on death. In the yogic tradition, death is not seen as a calamity. It is regarded as a transition, an unfolding of life's deeper dimensions. Life and death are not two separate events, but part of a single continuum. The physical body is temporary, but the energy within, the prana, the life force, simply shifts states. According to Sadhguru, dying is like removing worn-out clothes. The essence of who you are never perishes, only your outer form is shed. Yogis have studied this process with extraordinary precision. They've mapped out what happens to the body, mind, and energies in the moments before and after death. In advanced yogic sciences, it's even believed that a conscious practitioner can choose the moment of death and transition gracefully. This isn't fantasy, it's spiritual technology passed down for millennia. By understanding death, the yogi understands life at its core. This awareness dissolves fear. Why should one fear that which is inevitable and, in fact, natural? Fear only arises when we cling to identity, our name, achievements, body, and roles in society. Yet these are all temporary. The yogic path invites us to identify with the eternal, not the ephemeral. That which is eternal cannot die. It simply is. This isn't theory. It's experiential, accessible through deep inner exploration. Sadhguru emphasizes that the modern mind has become so outward-focused that it has lost touch with these inner truths. We look for security in the material, which is always unstable. But spiritual insight gives us access to a stillness within, untouched by birth or death. The yogi's invitation is not to escape life, but to experience it in its totality, including its end. Only then do we become truly free. Understanding death in this way is not about dogma or belief. It's about direct perception. Just as you can perceive the sun rising or the wind blowing, with inner stillness, you can perceive the subtle dimensions of life and death. And once you do, your relationship with fear begins to dissolve, and something greater begins to rise in its place: freedom. 3. Healing the fear of death and embracing life. Fear of death is one of the most primal and pervasive anxieties within the human psyche. It lurks beneath the surface of many of our choices, what we pursue, avoid, or attach ourselves to. We fear not just the moment of death, but the uncertainty of what follows. This fear creates tension, restlessness, and a sense of never being truly safe. But Sadhguru teaches that this fear is not inherent. It is learned, and it can be unlearned. The antidote to fear is awareness. When we shine the light of understanding on the unknown, it no longer holds power over us. In yogic practices, techniques like prima, dhyana, meditation, and mantra chanting are not just for stress relief, they are tools for inner transformation. They help stabilize the body's energy and calm the turbulence of the mind, allowing us to face even death with serenity. Sadhguru also explains that we fear death because we misunderstand life. We treat life as something we have, rather than something we are. But you are not a body with a soul. You are a soul temporarily housed in a body. When this is truly understood, death becomes a doorway, not a disaster. It becomes a sacred moment of release, a return to the boundless. To help with this shift, you can try a simple yet powerful breathing practice. Sit in stillness, inhale slowly, hold, and exhale, while repeating the thought, "I am not this body. I am not even this mind. I am the eternal presence behind it all." With consistent practice, this simple exercise helps dissolve the false sense of separation between life and death. It reconnects you to your eternal essence. When you begin to live without the shadow of death looming over every thought, your life expands. You take risks aligned with your soul. You love more freely. You forgive more easily. You are no longer trying to escape the inevitable. You are embracing the infinite. And in that embrace, fear has no place. 4. Grief, loss, and the spiritual healing of letting go. Losing a loved one can feel like being torn in half. The physical absence leaves a silence that echoes in every corner of your life. In the grieving process, we often feel helpless, confused, and spiritually lost. But Sadhguru offers a radically different way of understanding loss, not as separation, but as transformation. According to him, those who leave their bodies are not truly gone. They've simply moved into another dimension of existence. In yogic philosophy, energy never dies. The being you loved, their essence, is still present, just no longer in physical form. This idea may bring comfort, but more importantly, it invites a shift in how we relate to the departed. Instead of clinging to their absence, we are encouraged to honor their presence in subtle ways, through meditation, silence, and remembrance, not of their death, but of their life and essence. Sadhguru also warns against excessive mourning. When grief becomes chronic, it binds the soul of the departed and causes distress on energetic levels. Instead, he suggests that the most compassionate thing we can do for the departed is to create inner peace within ourselves. In that stillness, the bond remains alive, but free. It becomes a sacred connection, not a painful attachment. One powerful practice is to sit in silence each day and offer gratitude. Not words, just pure intention. Thank the soul for having shared time with you. Send love without desperation. Visualize them surrounded by light, at peace. This subtle practice brings healing, not only to your heart but also to the energetic relationship between you and them. Grief is real. Pain is real. But suffering is optional when one views death through the lens of spiritual understanding. You are not abandoning your loved one by moving forward. You are honoring them by choosing to live more deeply, more presently, and more freely. And in that sacred act of release, true healing begins. 5. Death as a portal to conscious living. Ironically, the moment we accept death is the moment we begin to truly live. Death strips away illusion. It reminds us that time is limited, that every breath is precious. It is the greatest teacher of urgency and presence. Sadhguru says, "Only fools think they have time." The wise know that life is short, and this awareness compels them to live consciously, not mechanically. When you carry death on your shoulder, not as fear, but as awareness, you stop wasting time. You stop numbing your existence with distractions, petty conflicts, or meaningless ambitions. You start living in alignment with what matters. You begin asking, what is my soul's purpose? Who do I need to forgive? What is the legacy I want to leave, not in material terms, but in spirit? This shift brings a clarity that is almost divine. Relationships become more real. Moments become more profound. Even simple acts, watching the sunset, holding someone's hand, become sacred. You begin to taste the richness of life because you're no longer asleep to its impermanence. Death becomes the mirror that reflects the truth of your existence. Sadhguru teaches that the most vibrant lives are lived by those who have already made peace with death. They're not reckless, but fearless. They're not cold, but clear. Their love is deep, their work is purposeful, and their presence is magnetic. Because they are not distracted by the illusion of permanence, they are grounded in the eternal now. So the next time you feel afraid, lost, or overwhelmed by the unknown, return to this truth. Death is not your enemy. It is your teacher. Let it show you how to live, not someday but now. As we come to the end of this journey, take a moment to reflect on what you've just heard. We've explored death not as an end, but as a sacred transition, an invitation to live with greater presence, purpose, and peace. We've seen how the yogic perspective, especially through the teachings of Sadhguru, can free us from fear, guide us through grief, and awaken us to the deeper truth of who we really are. Death is no longer the shadow in the corner. It is the mirror that reveals the light of your own being. You've learned that fear of death is truly fear of the unknown, and that through awareness, breath, and inner stillness, you can begin to dissolve that fear. You've also seen how grief can be transformed from pain into gratitude, from heaviness into sacred connection. And perhaps most importantly, you've discovered how living with death on your shoulder can help you live more fully, more authentically, and more soulfully, starting now. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you truly accepted that every moment is precious? What would change in your relationships, your choices, your dreams, if you lived without the fear of losing them? Leave a comment below and tell us, what insight from this video touched you the most? Your story could inspire someone else who is silently going through the same journey. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. This space is dedicated to those who seek real transformation, not just information. And if you want to go even deeper into emotional and spiritual healing, make sure to watch our previous video, The Secret of Jung to Heal Your Inner Child Fast, Transform Now. It's a perfect continuation of today's theme, offering powerful tools to reconnect with your wounded inner self and initiate real change from within. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to face the deeper truths most people avoid. Remember, death is not the end. It is the beginning of awareness. And through that awareness, your life can become a masterpiece of presence, peace, and purpose. Until next time, stay conscious, stay open, and stay connected to the